Hello, everybody. Welcome back into another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. We're going to be doing an early in the week preview of Penn State's trip to Evanston this Saturday for a matchup against Big Ten West Northwestern Wildcats. Wildcats are 2-2 entering this week, coming off a big come from behind win over the Minnesota Gophers last Saturday. But before we get into that, as well as our Week 5 Big Ten picks, we will also be talking about Penn State picking up two more commitments in the 2025 recruiting cycle after linebacker DJ McClary committed to the Nittany Lions on Sunday night. The Nittany Lions, over the last 2 days, have added four-star running back Aden Hayes and three-star jumbo athlete Brady OHara to the class. Gentlemen, we'll start there, kind of get this out of the way briefly. Me and Richie have talked about these over the last 2 days as well, but we'll briefly mention both of them here and talk a little bit about both pickups. Let's start with Aden Hayes, four-star running back out of one of the best high school football programs in the country, Aliquippa. The Quips have produced countless number of NFL Hall of Famers. Could Hayes be the next? We will see. But Hayes commits to Penn State on Monday, which was expected when he announced that he would be making a commitment last week. Picked the Nittany Lions over Cincinnati, Louisville, Michigan, Maryland, Michigan State, Ohio State, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, and West Virginia. Very good pickup for the Nittany Lions, kind of a do-it-all type running back in terms of he has the power, but he also has pretty good speed to go along with that power. Provides both that thunder and lightning. Marty, we'll start with you. You kind of are right around Hayes' area, so what's your thoughts on Hayes being the fourth commitment? Fourth commitment to the Nittany Lions class on Monday.
Yeah, it's an addition I like a lot. I mean, I know he doesn't have maybe some of the greatest measurables or testing numbers in the world,
Yeah.
but you watch his film, he's incredibly productive. He does it at, like you said, truly one of the best high school programs in the country.
Mm-hmm.
When you consider how small Aliquippa is, they're a single A school that the PIAA, because of how inconsistent and ridiculous they are with enforcing their competition rules, forces them to play 4A football, yet they continue to win state championships almost every year. That program knows how to breed football players. They know how to breed competitors and breed winners, and that's what he is. On film, he's not afraid to be physical. He's a shifty back, sneaky shifty. He uses his vision well, will find holes. And, again, it's crazy to say about a single A program, but kids leave Aliquippa more prepared for college than they do from a lot of public
Sure.
schools, not just in Pennsylvania, but in the region, quite
Sure.
honestly. It's been that way forever for the Quips. It's the pit where they play is an iconic stadium. Like I said, truly one of the most iconic football programs, not just in Pennsylvania, but in the entire country. So yeah, I'm all for getting kids from there anytime you can get. And I know Penn State went on a drought in Aliquippa for a very long time until Zariah Fisher, and Zariah Fisher sure looks like he's going to be a good one, even with the injuries. So that's kind of where you're at with the two. Is Aliquippa kids are ones who they tend to get to college and produce. Like
Mm-hmm.
Hayes just felt like a kid where if Penn State would have passed on him, he goes to Pitt or Michigan State or something like that, puts together a great career, and you're sitting there kicking yourself for not taking the in-state kid who wanted to be a Nittany Lion. So yeah, I think he's a very good back. He's never going to be super flashy, but he's just going to be the guy who's going to consistently get you at least 3, 4, 5 yards, move that pile, move the sticks. I think he could be a very good running back in college.
Muted on my end of things here on the recording. Yeah, you summed it up very well there, Marty. Anthony, what's your just quick thoughts on Aden Hayes to this class?
Yeah, I think them taking Hayes right now really speaks to how they feel about him as a prospect and how
Sure.
they feel he's progressed over the last 12 months or so. Because they already had a commit in 2025 running back Keandre Barker
Yep.
out of Texas.
Four-star prospect.
So
another
Yeah,
one.
exactly. And there's a long way to go until the 2025 signing day. So they could have been patient. They could have taken their time and maybe evaluated more guys, but it seemed like Hayes was ready to jump in and Penn State was ready to take him. So that should make you feel confident that they feel confident that he's a guy that can play at a Big Ten level and a guy that could fit into this running back room. Obviously, he's in state, Western Pennsylvania. Penn State's established a really solid foothold there over the last few years. We'll get into another guy in a second that also jumped in from Western Pennsylvania. So kind of a trend going on here. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for Hayes was that Penn State wanted to see was, can he improve his speed? Can he improve his testing numbers? And I think they feel that he has done that, and that allowed him to jump in the class. So I think, like Marty said, he's kind of like a bowling ball kind of back. He likes contact. He's gonna move the sticks. He might not be the most explosive guy in the world,
Yeah.
but when you're taking it to running back class, you want the guys to complement each other. They do
Sure.
different things really well. Barker might be your more agile sideline to sideline speed back, and Hayes might be more of your, 3rd and 2, you need a tough 3 yards. He's going to get that for you. The kind of like you have with Singleton and Allen right now. So, I think it's a solid pickup. We'll see how he develops over his senior season and leading into signing day. Yeah, I think it's a solid pickup.
All right, we'll move on to that next commitment here. That commitment is from, well, if you ask us on Rivals right now, we have him ranked as a tight end. He's probably best described right now as a jumbo athlete. That is Brady OHara out of Cranberry Township, North Catholic standout. We'll see where he ultimately ends up, guys, at the next level. This recruitment started off as a tight end. It seems to have moved a little bit maybe towards the offensive line. We'll see if that truly happens. But 6'6", 241, good athleticism, good length. I think the best way to truly describe Brady OHara is a jumbo athlete. He has the physical skill set to be a tight end or to join the Nittany Lions offensive line in the future. And with the development of the tight ends over the last few years, including under Ty Howe, but also the offensive line over the last few years under Phil Troutwine, you have to like the potential that Brady OHara brings to the Nittany Lions once he arrives on campus in a few years. Marty, we'll start with you again. Just what's your thoughts on Brady OHara joining this class on Tuesday morning?
Yeah, definitely an intriguing prospect. Like you said, I think the jumbo athlete is the best way to put it. What is he going to be in college? I have personally have some questions, not necessarily about his ability to play tight end at this level, but his ability to play tight end at the level at which it's been played at Penn State in recent years.
Sure.
Now, I have no doubts in his ability to certainly be a high-level Power 5 player. Is that as a right tackle? Is that as a left tackle? I don't know. But when you have a kid like OHara who's this athletically gifted, this talented, especially again when he's in state, you're going to get him here and figure it out. We've seen this before from so many players over the years where you don't know what they're going to be. You get them on campus and you figure it out. There's nothing wrong with that. You just stockpile the talent. You want to stockpile the talent and you piece it together when they're here. You look at this current freshman class. Look at King Mack. We probably still don't know if he's a safety or a corner, but he's really freaking good. You just get him here and figure it out. You look at Dakari Nelson. We probably don't know if he's a safety or a linebacker, but again, really talented. Get him here and figure it out. I think Brady OHara is in a similar camp to that. I mean, obviously a little bit different because he plays much different positions. It's going to be somewhere in the trenches, rather he's catching balls or not is the question. But yeah, another strong addition. I mean, OHara, not a surprise at all. This is a kid that, I think has been the when's he going to commit to Penn State, not if, for quite some time now. But, hey, that doesn't – even when you have the kids like that who you expect to add, it doesn't make it any less enjoyable for this coaching staff once they're on board.
Absolutely. Before I hand it off to Anthony, just adding on the jumbo athletes then, 2024 recruiting class, Caleb Brewer is a guy. I know we all think he's probably going to end up on the offensive line, but Penn State recruited him as an athlete. They think he could play offensive line, defensive line, tight end, wherever it may be. We'll find out in the future. But also, I know the kid is already gone from the program, but 2023 recruiting class, Matthias Mega Barnwell, another guy who was a jumbo athlete. Penn State was going to start him, I believe, at tight end. But that was a guy who they weren't sure, was he going to be a tight end, was he going to be an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman. I mean, Brady OHara, it's going to be a tight end or an offensive line, but he's somebody who actually has played a decent defensive end position as well for North Catholic. So I think we've definitely seen a trend of Penn State being willing to take these jumbo athletes and figuring out later just because of the athleticism that they bring. Anthony, what's your thoughts on the addition of Brady OHara?
Yeah, and to add what you're saying about the jumbo athletes, Liam Andrews is another guy that, wants to play defensive line, is going to start on the defensive line, but is also a really damn good offensive line prospect. So, yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see Penn State do this, especially with in-state guys. Caleb Brewer is a great example of that in the 2024 class, and now OHara in the 2025 class. He's a talented player. You don't know what Mother Nature is going to do with his body yet. Could he stay at 240, 250 pounds?
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to add 50 pounds to his frame and end up in the 300-pound range? That's obviously going to make a big difference on where he ends up at the next level. Does he have the speed to play the tight end position, or is he better suited to put on that weight and be on the offensive line? Those are questions that Penn State will find out, but in the meantime, they're happy to just get him in the program, get a talented player, especially a talented in-state guy, and you figure it out later. So, yeah, I like the pickup. He's a top 10 player in the state of Pennsylvania. You're never going to complain about landing those guys. So, yeah, that's just a big question. And I think Penn State will find out that answer soon enough.
Yeah, and Penn State is definitely, trending well for a handful of prospects in potentially the near future. I'm not sure there's any other commitments imminent, but we did, in the last 24 hours, enter some future casts for Washington, D.C. safety Kanoa Winston, the cousin of KJ Winston, goes to Gonzaga High School, which Olu Fashanu also went to. So Penn State's had some success in Gonzaga before. That's a program too that has produced a lot of strong talent. I mean, there is a certain quarterback out there who is the defending Heisman Trophy winner who also went to Gonzaga. But Penn State's in a very good spot for Kanoa Winston among some others. And I'm sure this won't be the last time this calendar year that we'll be talking about a 2025 commitment. Let's move on to this weekend's matchup. Penn State travels to Evanston to take on the 2-2 Northwestern Wildcats. And guys, I think the big thing to say here entering this game is this is a Northwestern team that's really playing hard for their head coach and David Braun. Penn State, I think, wins this game. I think they win this game by quite a large margin. But this is a Northwestern team that I think is going to, scrap and claw maybe for a quarter and a half against this Penn State team. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a strong first 15, 25 minutes against the Nittany Lions. Anthony, I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing, especially after that comeback win last week against Minnesota.
Yeah.
That kind of crept up on, I don't know about the rest of everybody listening, but that kind of crept up on me, and I know it crept up on Marty and you as well, Dylan. It was one of those things where you finished watching the Penn State-Iowa game. You're watching the Ohio State-Notre Dame game. That was a classic. And then you look at the scores on the rest of college football, and you're like, holy crap, Northwestern came back and won.
Yeah.
It just came out of nowhere. And, I mean, that's a huge testament to, well, obviously Minnesota choked that big time, but also Northwestern's toughness, their grit, and the fight that they have in them. So if you're Penn State, at the very least, that needs to catch your attention. So, I don't think this is necessarily a game where they can just sleepwalk through it. I mean, obviously there's a significant talent difference between Penn State and Northwestern, but
have to avoid the 11 a.m. kick lack of energy.
Yeah, and I think for Northwestern, it'll be interesting to see how they react and also how Penn State reacts. Both teams came off emotional games, emotional wins, big atmosphere. Well, not big atmospheres for Northwestern, but you know what I mean. Emotional wins.
Yep.
And you can either ride that momentum going into the next week, or you can kind of have a little bit of a flat start to the next game. So, we'll see how both teams come out in next week's game. Yeah,
Northwestern scoring 27 points in the final fourth quarter and in the fourth quarter in overtime to beat Minnesota 37-34. Minnesota was up 31-10 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Ended up allowing Northwestern to score 21 unanswered in the final 12 minutes of the fourth quarter before losing on Northwestern's first play from scrimmage in overtime. Marty, any thoughts on just Northwestern maybe giving Penn State, a little bit of a game here in the first 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, I mean it's an 11 a.m. local kick. I know people hate hearing that, but it's a real thing. It really
It
is.
is.
Northwestern, such a sleepy
We saw it
place.
against Illinois too.
Yeah, and that was an Illinois crowd that was pretty jacked up. That place was pretty full for the Orange Out. This is going
Yep.
to be a sleepy Northwestern crowd. Like you said, they're playing hard for David Braun, but this team doesn't have much talent. I won't be surprised, if this is one where for the first quarter or so you're sitting there just like scratch your head, like what is going
Yep.
on? I'll be in the process of driving across the state to your wedding. There might be a couple of times I feel like weaving into a tree listening to the first quarter and how it's going, but no, I think this just has like Northwestern leading 7-3 after the first quarter or something written all over it. And then you get the halftime and it's like 17-7. Then you get to the fourth quarter and it's like 31-7. And Penn State winds up winning it like 38-7 or something like that. But yeah, it's not going to be surprising if the Nittany Lions start slowing this just for a lot of reasons and then are able to just similar to the Illinois game, just slowly but surely keep chipping away, pulling away,
Yep.
and win this thing going away.
All right, let's kind of get into this game. Just a quick little preview today. I'm going to say what we said last week about Iowa. I'm not sure how Northwestern is going to move the ball consistently against this Penn State defense. I don't know if they're gonna, move the ball at all. They may they're gonna get more yards than Iowa, but ultimately, like, I see the max yardage for Northwestern in this game being somewhere around maybe 200 yards tops. I don't expect them to score more than 10 points tops in this game. Do you guys see any way Northwestern has any sort of sustainable success? I know Ben Bryant is coming off a 400-yard passing game, but before that game, Ben Bryant wasn't exactly, line up the box score in his collegiate career, period, whether it be at Cincinnati, Eastern Michigan, back to Cincinnati, or Northwestern.
Yeah, it's hard to see how they're going to consistently move the ball. I mean, they might have a drive or two here and there where they're able to move it a little bit. I think Ben Bryant's a decent quarterback. I don't know how you'd compare him to like Altmaier or McNamara. To be honest with you, maybe you could provide some insight into that. But they're at home, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit. But yeah, it's hard to see how they're going to move the ball that much. AJ Henning's a solid, dynamic receiver. Obviously, he's the transfer from Michigan. He's been having a solid start to the season so far. So if they can get him in space and have him make some plays, maybe that's how you get some plays off. But other than that, I don't really see a whole lot of consistency, at least with their offensive production.
All right. And I'm looking at it right now. 30. They're averaging less than 100 yards on the ground this game. 100 yards on the ground this season. I mean, if they can't run the ball against this Penn State team, which I don't expect them to do, I mean, Ben Bryant, this could be a huge day for the secondary. This Northwestern wide receiver core, their best wide receiver really is AJ Henning. Bryce Kurtz is coming off a monster game against Minnesota, but Minnesota had a good secondary coming into the last 2 weeks, but this Penn State secondary isn't going to have a letdown game to the proportions that Minnesota did. I mean, this is going to be a game I think that the Penn State secondary is going to be able to feast just overall.
My bad. Sorry, still muted. Yeah, no, I'd argue Penn State secondary right now is the best in the country. Maybe the deepest as well. So yeah, I'm with you. Just there's no one in this Northwestern passing game that scares you. Obviously we'll get into predictions here a little bit later on, but just about Northwestern's offense is struggling to score. I can tell you this much: I will not be predicting them to get the double digits this Saturday. So yeah, I think you can make an argument that Penn State secondary is the best in the country. I expect it to be another just shutdown kind of game for them. And I can't see. I'm with you. I can't see any way Northwestern is consistently moving the ball at all.
Flipping it over to the other side, Penn State's offense against this Northwestern defense. This Northwestern defense has been decent, kind of, against the pass, but at the same time, I mean, it looks decent on paper, but really it's not. They're allowing 187 yards per game, 66.3% completion rate, which kind of gives you the true story of this secondary. But opposing offenses are averaging 184 yards on the ground per game over 40 carries, 4.6 yards per carry. This could be a big get right game for Nicholas Singleton. I don't think Katron Allen needs it, but for Nicholas Singleton, I wouldn't be shocked if Nicholas Singleton breaks off a few big runs this weekend and kind of has that big coming out party for this season. Obviously, he had a great season last year. Hasn't had that game just yet. I think he could have a type of game on Saturday that just makes his season stats look a whole lot different than what they've been so far. Anthony, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. I think this is a big day potentially for the running back, specifically Nicholas Singleton. They absolutely need to find ways to get him going. He hasn't been terrible to start the year, but he just hasn't been himself. He doesn't look like the dynamic runner, the explosive playmaker that we got used to last year. And they need to find ways to unlock that. And I think for a Northwestern team that you said is giving up a lot of yards on the ground this year, this could be a great game to really try to get him going. So that would be my biggest emphasis if I was James Franklin, if I was Mike Yurcich, get the running game going in this one. I think Drew, he's going to do the same thing he does every week. He's going to take what Northwestern gives him. As long as the wide receivers can catch the ball and make plays, they'll be fine in the passing game. They should be able to move the ball consistently. But yeah, I agree. Priority number one in this game should be get that run game right.
Marty, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree on this being a potential real kind of get right kind of scenario here for Nicholas Singleton. That is one thing. There are very few true concerns, worries, whatever you may have with this team right now. And I'm not even going to say this is a concern or a worry. I'm just going to say one thing you would like to see between now and the time they go to Columbus on October 21st is to see some more explosiveness in this offense, especially the running game. Because the passing game, I think it's there, and they just haven't really needed it, so that's why we haven't seen it. But you want to see the explosiveness there again with Nick Singleton. So hopefully we can see that Saturday. If you can start to get that explosiveness back from Nicholas Singleton, you're really going to feel good about this offense and where it's at and where it can go. So, hopefully that will be the case on Saturday. They can get that running game going, get the explosiveness going from Singleton again, and that can be kind of a launching off point into the bye week and then, UMass and then eventually the Buckeyes.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you. I mean, opposing teams have a need to really throw the ball against this Northwestern off defense to be successful. 29 attempts, 30 attempts, 2019 over the first 4 weeks. Unsurprisingly, these last two games, Northwestern's allowed 268 and 244 rushing yards in each game. I'm expecting another quiet day out of Drew, another efficient day. It's something, along the lines of 24 for 28, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, something in that range. I don't think he's going to be putting up huge numbers at much this year just because Penn State's really shown early this season they, yes, have an elite quarterback, but they don't need to use him to win games. When he needs to step up, we'll see. Can he step up into those roles? He's going to have to do so against an Ohio State, against a Michigan, one would imagine. But against these other opponents, there's no reason to have him throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game. Let him go out there and make efficient use of what he does have and, just grind out games. Penn State's shown that they're very able and willing to grind out games this season. I expect that's what we'll see against Northwestern on Saturday. Any general final thoughts on the preview? Again, we're doing a really quick preview today. But any general thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah, no, on the topic of Drew and the passing game, I wouldn't mind seeing them just first play, second play, come out and just try to take the top off the defense a little bit. I think that's been a topic of conversation amongst Penn State fans on the social media sphere has been, we haven't really seen much explosive plays from this offense yet. Is that something that's a little concerning? I personally am not concerned yet, but I wouldn't mind seeing them, at least one or two times try to throw it deep. If it gets picked off, it gets picked off, so be it. But it would be, it'd be nice to see some explosive plays too. That would definitely feel like we have a more dynamic offense as opposed to, and I don't mind the grinded out style so much, but you might need those explosive plays come the bigger games. Does that make sense?
100% makes sense, and I think if the run game doesn't kind of start showing those explosive plays against Northwestern and UMass, I think there's reason to be a little bit even more concerned, especially because, let's be honest, if they're going to beat Ohio State, you're going to need explosive plays. Marty, any final thoughts?
No, I will say, if you fail to get anything here, especially against UMass, I would definitely raise a red flag there. I think one thing with UMass too, obviously, we'll get into this in a few weeks whenever we go to preview that game a little bit deeper. But against a Don Brown defense that is always so susceptible to big plays, I think that would be more of a red flag. But again, right now I'm with Anthony. I'm not worried. I think they're there. I think the big plays are going to come. I also think if Penn State had played a game so far this year where they needed the big play, they would have happened. They haven't needed it. The closest we've seen to them, quote unquote, needing it was early in that West Virginia game where, as we said, what was it, second play from scrimmage, third play from scrimmage for Penn State, the 70-something yard touchdown pass to Keandre Lambert-Smith. And then after that, they were just kind of went into cruise control against West Virginia. They've been in cruise control ever since. So, again, I think if they needed it, it would be there. But I understand the concern of people who want to see it. Because, I do too. I want to see it, but I'm not going to be super worried about it quite yet.
Sure. And I think for me, it's just to a degree, it's like it may be that they have not needed, and that's true. But I definitely think that's it with the passing attack. I think there's some questions if they can do it consistently with the passing attack. But it feels like the running game, at least, these are the type of games where if you're Nicholas Singleton, you just need to hit the hole. Penn State's offensive line should be able to open up holes in this game. Hit the hole and just run. And I know it's harder than that, but at some point, Singleton and Allen are going to have to show the ability that they can break off these long chunk plays. And if they can't do that against Northwestern, I'm going to start having questions if they can do it when the opponent is, a legitimate front seven in Ohio State or Michigan. And I still think they could then, but I guess what I'm trying to say is it quote unquote sandbagging it, or is it more of kind of a half and half scenario where they don't need them right now, but perhaps they're not as explosive as we thought coming into this season? But I think ultimately it's only going to matter for Penn State in 2 games this year. If they can have enough explosive plays in those 2 games, they should be okay, and they'll have a chance to go undefeated this year. All right. Penn State's a 27.5-point favorite, I think, right now over Northwestern. Let's make our picks in this one. I'm going to go Penn State 38, Northwestern 6. Marty?
I was going to say 38-6, but just to be a little bit different, I'll say Alex Falcons adds a second field goal. Give me 41-6 Nittany Lions.
Okay.
This is gonna sound bad, but I was gonna say 38-7.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. But that's your gut. Go with your gut.
We're all in the same ballpark here. Maybe that's a sign. But I think this is a Penn State team that is absolutely capable of dropping 56 points on Northwestern. I just don't know if I see it happening from the standpoint of I don't know if the motivation to do it is going to be there. So if that makes sense. Not that they won't be motivated to come out and play this game, but
if they're grinding the ball out on the ground, the time's just going to come off the clock faster anyway.
Yeah, no, I think they'll do what they need to do to get this game, over by, halftime, mid third quarter. They'll have the backups in. Northwestern will have one, maybe two drives where they, go down the field. Penn State's usually, they didn't have it in the Iowa game. They're usually good for that one drive on defense where they just, get dogged for a drive. It happens. And, it'll be 38-7. So that's my prediction there.
All right, let's get into our Big Ten picks for this week. We'll use the opening lines here, starting with Louisiana Lafayette at Minnesota, 12 p.m. on Saturday. Minnesota 12-point favorite. I know the Golden Gophers are coming off back-to-back losses, including a terrible loss to Northwestern. But give me Minnesota to win this. I think they bounce back. That running game has been really good. I think if they can get out to a lead in this one, they're not going to cough this one up. So give me the Golden Gophers to cover this one.
Yeah, that was just a really bad collapse. I mean, they were up 31-10 going into the fourth.
Yeah.
So, or 31-17, whatever. But those kind of collapses don't happen every week. But give me Minnesota to win and cover here.
Yeah, I'm the same boat. Give me Minnesota to win and cover. I'm with you. I still think it's a really good defense. I have a lot of questions about their offense, no doubt about that. But I still think it's a pretty good defense, and I just don't see any way the Raging Cajuns are going to be able to get enough going offensively to hang within 2 touchdowns.
All right. Michigan, an 18-point favorite against Nebraska. This is actually one that I've been going back and forth with just because Michigan's kind of been sandbagging it the first 4 weeks of the season, not really showing much. That being said, I don't think Nebraska can score on Michigan. I think Michigan's going to get 35-something, around 35 points this game. So give me Michigan to cover this game. I think I'd probably be comfortable with them covering up into like 24 points.
I'm in the same boat. I think Michigan wins and Michigan covers. I do kind of agree that they've just kind of been going through the motions the first 4 weeks because they've been able to do that. They're that good, and the opponents have been, mediocre to bad. They're at Nebraska for this one. Nebraska's always a fun environment. The crowd's always electric because in Nebraska they got nothing better to do than watch Nebraska football. So, I think Michigan will be up and ready for this one. Give me Michigan to win and cover. And Nebraska's not going to be able to score on them. Jeff Sims is just terrible.
All right.
Guess I don't get.
Give your pick. Give your pick, Marty.
I'm also in the Michigan to win and cover category. I think Nebraska stinks. I'm sure Michigan for maybe the first quarter or so might be tested or whatever we're going to say for the first time all year. I think the atmosphere there will kind of keep the Huskers in it for a little bit. But Nebraska's terrible. Michigan's probably one of the 5 best teams in the country at worst. So, give me the Wolverines to win and cover.
All right, moving on. Indiana and Maryland. Maryland, a 14-point favorite. Give me Maryland to cover this Indiana team. I thought was better than we thought, but then they struggled last week against who was that? FAU? Was that No, that was Illinois. Akron. It was Akron
last week. Fighting Joe Moorheads, man. They almost
got it, baby.
Give me Maryland to cover that, though. I would be shocked if Indiana covers the first quarter spread in this game. Maryland's been off to some slow starts this year. They fell 14-0 behind both Charlotte and Virginia before turning it on and winning both of those games. I wouldn't be shocked if Indiana gets out to a lead in this game, but Terrapins are going to win this one pretty big. I'd take Maryland minus that 14.
Yeah, this to me, honestly, if I did a lock of the week on this show, this would probably be my lock of the week in the Big Ten. I mean, I can't, after last week with Indiana, I can't see any way that, they're going to come out and beat this Maryland team. I think Maryland's going to score a lot of points on them. I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I also think Maryland wins and covers rather easily. I think Maryland, in my opinion, Maryland's 4th best team in the Big Ten. I think if they were in the West, they'd win the West very easily. And one other note on this game, I'm just glad to see, Dylan, that even though you're playing for your wedding this weekend, your mind is still in the right place, looking for first quarter under lock bets. I love it.
That's priorities in check.
Once a degenerate, always a degenerate. Once a sicko, always a sicko. Next up on the list is Illinois at Purdue. Purdue, 1-point favorite at home here. In reality, I would never touch this game and this spread. I don't know really who. This is a true toss-up. This Purdue team, though, isn't very good, and I think Illinois is primed for a solid performance this weekend. So give me Illinois to go on the road and beat Purdue here.
I will say I'm looking at ESPN right now, and that line has shifted to even money according to ESPN. So
All right.
finally,
Well, if it's even money, give me Illinois.
you know what? I wouldn't touch this game with a 10-foot pole, but if I had to pick one, give me the one that benefits Penn State's strength of schedule. Give me Illinois to win.
Yeah, I think Purdue is not very good. I think that's probably a bottom 5 team in the Big Ten this year. I still think Illinois at least gets to a bowl game. So yeah, give me the Illini. I think they win on Saturday.
All right, and finally, Michigan State, a 11.5 point underdog on the road. Night kick in Kinnick for two really poor programs right now. Well, I mean, Iowa just was ranked, but I mean, how excited can Iowa fans really be after last week? I don't know. Cade McNamara apparently gave a speech to the Hawkeyes after that loss to Penn State. So perhaps Iowa's offense goes from non-existent to almost non-existent this week. We'll see. They're going up against a very bad Michigan State defense. I really don't know what to expect in this one. That being said, I can't imagine Iowa being any Big Ten opponent by double digits. So give me Michigan State to cover. That over-under of 36.5 under. Is either team going to get to 14? I don't know. So give me the under on the under. And give me Michigan State to cover. 11.5.
Yeah, chalk this under in the same category as Illinois Purdue as a game I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. I have absolutely no idea how this game's going to go. Michigan State is obviously going through a lot of shit right now. Excuse my language. And Iowa can't score. So I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in this one. Enjoy the sicko game. I'll say Iowa wins because they're at home. It's a night kick at Kinnick. Crazy things always happen at night kicks in Kinnick. I don't care how bad that Iowa offense might be. When it's a night kick, they can turn into freaking 0-1 Miami. And give me Michigan State to cover still because I just can't see Iowa beating a Big Ten opponent by double digits, like you said.
Before I give it to Mari, this has the makings of like an 8-6 Iowa win, but all 8 points are from safeties.
I respect you saying 8-6 instead of a different combination of single-digit numbers. That might scar some people.
God, yeah. Iowa fans feel probably pretty awful about their offense and their team, but just look at the rest of the Big Ten West. Like, I still think Iowa wins the Big Ten West. I really do.
It's very much possible.
Like, and I think their defense is going to be very motivated Saturday after what happened. You know, Cade McNamara rallies the troops. Iowa finds a way to score like 16 points. And Michigan State, I said it last week. I'll say it again. I will not pick them to cover a spread the rest of the year. I think that team has quit. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better in East Lansing. So I think the Hawkeyes win and they cover. You know, it'll probably be something disgusting still, like 16-3 or like 15-3, where Iowa just kicks a bunch of field goals. But yeah,
just a field goal game, just a bunch of field goals.
It really may be. And the drive for 325 just keeps getting further and further out of reach in the process. But yeah, I think Iowa wins and covers, but that has more to do with the fact that I think Michigan State is just I don't think they were very good to begin with, and I think they have quit with all the Mel Tucker stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sparty doesn't have a game the rest of the year where they lose by less than double digits.
That should be the tagline for that game: a special teams bonanza.
Oh God, it'll be disgusting.
Well, the good news is that
I can't wait till we can throw that on, find it at the bar Saturday night after the wedding or the reception or whatever, and just sit there and have a beer and enjoy every second of that disgustingness in person together.
Yes, the good news is that is the NBC game of the week. So everybody in the nation is going to be able to enjoy that one. But with that, that's all for today's episode. A nice little quick one, which is a semi-miracle for us three to have a quick episode under 45 minutes, but we did it today. Congratulations, guys. Give yourself a pat on the back. We'll be back next Sunday to discuss Penn State's. I'll see what they do against Northwestern, but if Penn State beats Northwestern, we probably will have another short episode. If Penn State loses to Northwestern, we may have the longest episode in the history of the podcast just yet. So we'll see what happens. I think we all can safely assume it'll be a Penn State win, but we will have to wait and see ultimately. But we'll be back Sunday to recap Penn State's latest matchup, and we'll see if anything else in the meantime comes up to discuss. But until then, everybody, enjoy another week of college football. Enjoy the NFL games on this week as well, and we'll talk to you all real soon.